In the harsh natural environment, every approach begins with precise observation and a carefully calculated close-range maneuver, but not every attack goes as planned. As distance narrows and pressure increases, even a small deviation in timing or direction can alter the entire course of events. The following situations capture moments where attacks by these animals are thwarted midway, revealing the practical limitations of hunting strategy. In tropical rivers, lakes, and swamps, crocodiles choose murky water, low banks, and reeds to hide, often lying close to the water's edge where prey approaches, maintaining a very short attack distance and taking advantage of moments when the target is off guard. However, once they leave their familiar ambush position, this state gradually reveals its obvious weaknesses. Along the riverbank, a jaguar silently observes a crocodile basking in the sun on a sandbar. It moves around, maintaining distance and waiting for the right moment. When an opening appears, the jaguar suddenly accelerates, lunging forward and closing in from the side, forcing the crocodile to instantly turn and react, creating a situation of escalating pressure. In the brief confrontation, the crocodile attempts to turn back into the water, but the jaguar maintains its close proximity and controls its movement. Escape routes are gradually narrowed. The safe space quickly disappears. The crocodile loses its environmental advantage and is forced to react passively. The decisive moment arrives when the jaguar takes complete control, and the crocodile loses its advantage. In a waterfront environment, outcomes depend on location and timing. When forced out of familiar space, advantage can be lost very quickly. And when distance is completely controlled, the course of events often leads to an irreversible end. In the rivers, lakes, and swamps of sub-Saharan Africa, such as the Serengeti or Kruger, hippos live in shallow waters near the shore, foraging on grasslands at night before returning to guard their territory. During the dry season, they maintain a stable water supply while many other species migrate further. But once they leave their protected areas, this behavior gradually reveals clear weaknesses. On the riverside meadow, a hippo was engrossed in foraging, unaware of a lion lurking in the low bushes. The lion maintained its distance, observing its movements for a long time. When an opening appeared, it suddenly accelerated, charging straight towards its target, forcing the hippo to turn and flee, creating a situation of escalating pressure. The chase erupted on the low grass as the hippo repeatedly changed direction to find an escape route, but the lion maintained its pursuit, gradually closing the gap. The hippo's escape routes were cut off, its safe space disappeared, and it could no longer maintain a steady pace. The hunt ended when the lion gained complete control, and the outcome was sealed as the lion took control, leaving the hippo with no way to escape. In open spaces near a water source, the outcome depends on timing and the ability to control distance. When pressure is maintained at the right pace, the advantage can shift rapidly. And when distance is completely locked, the course of events often leads to an irreversible end. In the savanna grasslands and open woodlands of East and South Africa, such as the Serengeti or Kruger, African buffalo typically live near rivers and lakes to maintain year-round water and food sources. They move flexibly for tens of miles when conditions change, maintaining a survival advantage in harsh environments. But when separated from their safe zone, this state gradually reveals a clear weakness. In the middle of a vast savanna, a resting buffalo spotted a mature elephant approaching. The elephant didn't stop, but continued to close in with a steady pace, forcing the buffalo to stand and constantly adjust its direction. As the distance narrowed, the elephant accelerated, creating direct pressure and forcing the buffalo to retreat, creating a situation of escalating tension. A swift chase unfolded across the low grass as the buffalo tried to change direction to escape. But the elephant maintained its distance and controlled its movement. The safe space gradually disappeared. The buffalo could no longer hold its position and was forced to leave the area. At this point, the confrontation ended with the elephant gaining control of the space, and the situation became unsustainable. In an open environment, size advantage and spatial control can quickly change the game, even for highly defensive species. When pressure is maintained continuously, defensive structures weaken, and the situation often leads to an irreversible end. In savannas, woodlands, and rocky mountain regions from Africa to South Asia, cheetahs adapt to diverse environments, often operating alone and utilizing tall trees for shelter and storing prey. In Africa, they climb trees to avoid lions and hyenas. But when on the ground and far from their hiding places, this behavior becomes increasingly vulnerable. On the savanna, a lion spotted a cheetah basking with its cubs. It maintained its distance and moved across the area to lock onto the cheetah, observing its reaction briefly. When an opening appeared, the lion suddenly accelerated, closing in directly and forcing the cheetah to retreat repeatedly, disrupting its movement and escalating the situation into a tense standoff. The chase quickly escalated as the cheetah continuously changed direction to find the nearest tree. But the lion maintained its pace, closing the distance step by step. With its escape routes blocked, the cheetah was pushed to its limit and forced to make a decisive turn toward a tree trunk. Climbing up in an instant, the pressure was broken as the close proximity was no longer maintained. Although not defeated, the lion held the advantage. In an open environment, the advantage of close proximity comes from size and control over direction. But terrain can change the situation in a very short time. When one animal manages to reach a safe space in time, the pressure is neutralized. And when distance is no longer maintained, the outcome usually closes in an irreversible direction. Amidst the vast grasslands of East and Southern Africa, such as Kenya or Tanzania, zebras maintain positions in areas with good visibility, moving in tight herds to increase their ability to detect danger, their overlapping black and white stripes creating visual confusion. However, when one zebra deviates from the formation, and loses its connection with the herd. That state gradually reveals obvious vulnerabilities. At the edge of the herd, a hyena patiently watched and maintained distance, moving parallel to wait for the moment its target slowed down. When a zebra broke away from the main group, the hyena suddenly accelerated, closing in from behind and continuously forcing its way, compelling the prey to react quickly and change direction repeatedly, escalating the situation to a significantly tense state. The chase became intense as the zebra exerted all its strength to escape, constantly changing direction to create space. But the hyena maintained a steady pursuit and gradually closed the gap. Escape routes were cut off. The zebra's running speed began to decrease, and the situation entered a decisive phase when the hyena gained a clear advantage, leaving the zebra unable to escape the encirclement. In an open environment, the cohesion of the group determines survival. When one individual loses its position within the collective structure, pressure quickly builds and weakens its defenses. And when distance is completely controlled, the situation often leads to an irreversible end. On the boundary between the bush and the open grasslands of East and South Africa, impalas choose positions with both visibility and obstruction, both foraging and maintaining space to change direction when in danger. They can leap over bushes and change direction constantly, but when separated from the herd and losing spatial connection, this state gradually reveals obvious vulnerabilities. In the middle of the grassland, a cheetah spotted a herd of impalas scattering. It lowered its body, maintaining a tailwind and closing the gap step by step, its movements steady and consistent. When one impala strayed from the group, the cheetah suddenly accelerated, plunging into the gap and forcing the target to react instantly, escalating the situation into a continuous cycle of increasing pressure. The chase erupted with rapid changes of direction as the impala tried to create distance with short jumps and sharp turns. The cheetah maintained a straight path and adjusted its angle closely, the distance shrinking with each step, escape routes being cut off, and the impala losing its ability to maintain its directional changes. The outcome was that the cheetah gained a clear advantage, and the impala could no longer maintain a safe distance. On the vast grasslands and savannas of Africa, such as Kenya or Namibia, rhinos choose areas with good visibility to detect danger early, maintain a safe buffer zone, and use their large size to deter predators. However, when moving alone and losing their spatial buffer zone, this vulnerability becomes apparent. From the edge of the area, a pack of hyenas tracked the movements of a lone rhinoceros, circling around it, maintaining a steady rhythm and waiting for the opportune moment. When the target changed direction, the pack of hyenas simultaneously closed the distance, closing in from multiple directions and forcing the rhinoceros to accelerate its reaction and constantly adjust its course, pushing the situation into a state of significantly increasing pressure. The chase continued on dry ground as the rhinoceros tried to maintain its direction and resist with sharp changes of direction. But the hyenas maintained their pursuit and applied continuous pressure from multiple sides. The gaps were gradually closed. The rhinoceros's movement became unstable, and the situation shifted to a dominant phase as the pack of hyenas completely controlled the approach. Neither side was killed, but the advantage had shifted decisively to the hyenas. Through each encounter, it's clear that the decisive factor lies not only in strength, but also in the ability to control distance, timing, and direction of movement in space. When pressure is maintained or broken, the situation can change rapidly, showing that every hunting strategy has clear limitations. In nature, even a small deviation is enough to change the outcome, and that is the boundary that makes the difference between a successful attack and an irreversible failure. In nature, every approach can turn into an irreversible situation. Big cats don't rely on sheer strength alone, but on how they close the distance unnoticed. When timing and location align, any subsequent reaction is almost certainly not quick enough. And it is in those brief moments that the outcome is decided before the actual confrontation begins. In their familiar pack movements, impalas maintain their vigilance by observing ahead and to the sides. They rely on speed, quick reflexes, and the ability to change direction to avoid danger on the ground. Their agile movements often allow impalas to regain distance in a very short time, but that observation doesn't always cover the space above. On a branch nearly 30 feet high, the female leopard lay still and held her position in absolute silence. She made no obvious movements, no signals sufficient for the impalas below to notice. When one came within sufficient distance, the leopard plummeted straight down from above. The approach was so quick, leaving almost no time for a reaction. The moment of impact completely disrupted the rhythm of the pack below. The impala didn't have time to regain distance in the usual way because the danger came from an unforeseen location. The leopard gains the advantage at the very first moment of contact. The ambush ends when the target no longer has enough space to make an escape. At the point of transition from stillness to pressure, the deciding factor is not a prolonged chase, but an approach that goes beyond the prey's familiar reflexes. When the threat comes from above, conventional defenses quickly lose their effectiveness. A small change in position can make a big difference in the outcome. In nature, altitude sometimes provides an advantage even before speed is used. Besides the familiar water's edge, capybaras maintain their survival instinct by staying close to areas where they can quickly retreat when necessary. They often choose low, easily observable positions and are ready to dive into the water when they sense danger. This habit of relying on familiar safe zones helps capybaras avoid much of the pressure on land. But when distance is misjudged, the escape reflex may come too late. Hidden in low vegetation near the shore, the jaguar keeps its body almost motionless and waits for a very short gap in attention. It doesn't move much, doesn't make clear signals, but simply narrows the distance patiently. When the capybara comes within range, the jaguar lunges out in a very short burst and closes in almost immediately. The capybara reflexively runs back into the water, but the detection distance is no longer sufficient to regain safe speed. When contact occurs at such close range, the advantage clearly shifts to the cheetah. The capybara doesn't have time to prolong its escape as usual, and its familiar retreat route is no longer effective. The ambush ends quickly as the target loses the opportunity to open up distance. In this situation, the deciding factor is not long-range speed, but the timing of the approach. In open, unprotected space, the buffalo prioritizes maintaining a direct line of sight and controlling the area in front of it. It constantly adjusts its position to avoid being forced into close range, while remaining ready to turn back when the distance shortens. Despite its declining physical condition, its defensive reflexes remain stable. As the distance continues to narrow, the situation shifts to a direct confrontation. At the edge of the area, signs of weakening begin to manifest as a cautious approach. The lion closes the distance step by step, maintaining a steady pace instead of immediately pressing. Just as it gets close, the buffalo turns and charges back to maintain its position, slowing down the approach. At that moment, a second individual appears behind, opening up another line of pressure. The pressure from two sides gradually destabilizes the defensive structure. The buffalo maintains one direction of resistance, but the other direction is no longer under control when the distance is kept close. The lion utilizes coordination to maintain continuous pressure, preventing the target from opening another escape route. The outcome is decided when the ability to maintain balance between the two directions is no longer sufficient. When the situation shifts to coordination, the outcome no longer depends on a single approach. A wounded target can still pose a threat if facing only one direction. But when pressure is evenly distributed and tightened, the options for reaction decrease rapidly. In nature, small changes in numbers can tip the balance sharply to one side. In a highly competitive environment, hyenas maintain their survival instincts by observing quickly, keeping a flexible pace, and always seeking an escape route when pressure increases. They may be very confident when working in groups, but when separated from their support space, their reaction shifts to clear defense. Each step backward or change of direction is aimed at preserving the last remaining space. But when the escape route is closed, the entire situation begins to change. On the outside, the lion doesn't charge in immediately but approaches slowly, maintaining distance and gradually tightening its encirclement. Each direction of movement is controlled alternately, forcing the hyena to constantly turn without finding an escape route. The pressure increases not through a single push, but through a constant presence from multiple directions. The hyena is unable to mount a clear counterattack and gradually shifts entirely to a state of survival defense. When the situation is completely controlled, the outcome is almost predetermined before any major changes occur. The lion maintains control, while the hyena loses its ability to escape the pressure. The confrontation doesn't unfold with a rapid, aggressive tempo, but rather drags on to demoralize and weaken the opponent's options. The hyena loses from the outset, while the lion maintains its advantage without escalating too far. Once the situation is under control, the outcome is no longer dependent on individual attacks. One side doesn't need to exert its full strength. It only needs to prevent the opponent from having effective countermeasures. When psychological pressure is prolonged, the advantage becomes apparent even before the situation reaches a decisive point. In nature, controlling space is sometimes enough to secure a complete victory. In the midst of a herd's movement, wildebeest maintain their survival instincts by staying in sync with the group and reacting collectively. They rely on endurance, balance, and distance from the herd to reduce the risk of isolation. While in formation, the opportunity to escape pressure remains, but even a slight delay can quickly lead to the loss of safe distance. From behind, cheetahs begin to close the distance and keep their target within close range. When close enough, one cheetah pushes forward to block the breathing rhythm, while the other strikes the legs to disrupt balance. The wildebeest still resists and tries to maintain its posture, but the pressure from two directions completely breaks the rhythm of movement. The chase shifts to control in a very short time. Once the target loses its balance, the advantage shifts decisively to the cheetahs. The gap with the pack could not be closed again, and resistance diminished with each passing moment. But soon after, hyenas began appearing near the area where the hunt had just taken place. The initial situation closed very quickly, while new pressure immediately formed. As soon as new pressure appeared, the entire situation shifted to a different phase. A target separated from the group can be pressured very quickly, but any gains immediately face other risks. When time is short, each subsequent step becomes more important. In nature, gaining an advantage is difficult. Maintaining it is even harder. At close range in the low grass, the leopard maintains its hunting instincts with patience and precise control of each movement. It doesn't rush to accelerate, but instead closes the distance almost silently. Each approach is aimed at getting close enough to avoid prolonging the chase. This stability allows for highly accurate timing of the strike. Ahead, the wildebeest continues to move, unaware of the shrinking distance. The leopard keeps its body low, taking short strides and waiting for the moment its target loses its attention. When the distance is close enough, it springs up swiftly and presses down on the neck in the first move. The entire situation shifts from silence to almost direct contact with virtually no buffer. Completely surprised, the prey is unable to react strongly enough to regain the distance. The advantage shifted to the leopard right after the first accurate close-range approach. The hunt ended quickly without prolonging into a chase. In this situation, just one well-placed shot was enough to decide the entire outcome. In their early years, young wild dogs exhibit instinctive curiosity and free movement around a safe area. They often play, maintain little distance, and haven't yet developed fully developed reflexes to unexpected dangers. The presence of a pack provides a sense of security and stability. But when separated from that protection, their reactions become slower than usual. While the area remains calm, the lion is very close without being detected. The distance is shortened almost instantly while the target is still distracted. There is no prolonged chase, just a direct approach at very short range. The situation shifts from calm to tense in a very rapid manner. In the very first moment of contact, the ability to react effectively is almost eliminated. The young wild dog doesn't have time to switch to an effective defensive state and loses control from the very first second. The outcome is determined very early on when there is no room to escape the situation. The confrontation ends before any significant change can occur. After a brief period, the situation reveals a clear difference between perception and reality. When the distance is broken from the outset, any subsequent reactions lack sufficient time to develop. A moment of distraction can lead to a clear outcome. In nature, the younger generation always relies on maintaining a safe distance. Every confrontation begins with a very small change in the prey's perception. A slow step, a misdirection of gaze, or an overlooked gap can alter the entire course of events. When the reaction is delayed, all previous advantages become meaningless. In nature, mistakes often happen only once, but the consequences are immediate.